Thank you for volunteering to improve the culture of safety at UC Irvine Health. I'm Linda Dickey, the Senior Director for Quality, Safety, and Infection Prevention. Part of our commitment to improving the culture of safety at our organization is the implementation of a program known as Team Stepps, which has been shown to improve patient safety through effective communication. In order to ensure the most efficient implementation of the program, we have consulted with Bob Smith of Metro Health in Cleveland, Ohio. Bob is the director of the Medical Staff Assistance Program and the Team Stepps Regional Training Center for Metro Health System, where he led the successful system-wide implementation of Team Stepps. He is here today to share his experience with Team Stepps, best practices for implementation and sustainment, and how instructors can prepare to engage adult learners. Thank you for joining us.
All right, Bob. Well, for those people who maybe aren't familiar with Team Stepps, how would you describe it?
Well, first of all, it stands for Team Strategies and Tools to Enhance Performance and Patient Safety. It's a program that actually originated with the military, the United States Army. And so they recognized that they were having difficulties in their aviation unit and created a program that was not meant simply to be just training, but meant to be education with hands-on implementation immediately after learning these new skills and techniques. And they focused on 4 areas: leadership, communication, situation monitoring, and mutual support. The program was extremely successful. The Army adopted it for all of their areas, and then other branches of the military adopted it. And today, if you fly on a commercial airline, all of the processes that the pilot and the crew and the ground crew follow, all based on Team Stepps. Same thing if you go to a nuclear power plant. What you'll see in terms of safety there is all based upon these same principles. So what happens is here they've developed this program, the military is using it, and we get into around 2000 where that famous paper, To Err is Human, came out, and there was just a very sort of global awareness that healthcare was struggling. That although we were providing good care in many areas, we were also having a lot of errors, and those errors could be fatal. As a result, they were looking for a way to enhance patient safety. A number of creative people took a look at the military program and said, wow, why couldn't we take those same principles and adapt them and use them in a healthcare environment? AHRQ and the Department of Defense worked together. They created this along with a number of other research partners, and they came up with a program that they called Team Stepps. Same 4 areas, but they modified it to be directly relevant to healthcare professionals. So now we have nearly 30 years of research related to teamwork and Team Stepps, and we're able to show that it improves patient safety, quality of care, reduces length of stay, reduces infection rates, and improves staff morale, improves retention of staff within areas, because it benefits not just the patient, but also it benefits the team that are working together in a more effective way, and people enjoy their work more.
Absolutely, makes sense. So what was your approach to Team Stepps at Metro Health specifically?
Well, we started our journey probably now almost 5 years ago. I had mentioned that I was interested in Team Stepps and discovered that our emergency department, trauma unit, and neonatal intensive care unit were all talking about it, but none of them were talking to each other. So what I did is I brought them all together, and by the time I brought all the people into a room that were interested in Team Stepps, I had 20 different professionals from all across our organization. Very quickly, they became our change team. They decided that I would be the champion to lead the initiative, and we put together sort of a plan where we first talked to several hospitals that were using Team Stepps. We looked at all the research. We agreed that we felt that Team Stepps was right for Metro Health, and then we pitched it to our leadership. And what was really exciting for me was that I pitched it as a system-wide initiative, meaning that we were going to train and implement Team Stepps not just with our clinical areas, but also with our non-clinical areas. And so that became very exciting, but also a little daunting, because we're like UC Irvine, we're about now system-wide. We can see that our quality department has integrated Team Stepps principles and tools. Our patient experience department now is on board and using a lot of the tools. And we're forming collaborations so that projects that are system-wide, that touch on many different aspects of our care, we're now collaborating. Where before there were silos, I think those silos are going away.
Oh, that's amazing. So how do you go about teaching Team Stepps within your organization?
We decided right from the start that we were going to follow with what Team Stepps proposes, which is a train-the-trainer model. And I'm a real advocate for that. So the idea is that instead of a consultant coming in to your organization, knowing all about Team Stepps, and doing this mass training of everyone by the consultant, who then is telling you about these tools, and then indirectly sort of trying to tell you how to do your job, and then they go away. I think that that has a real sort of negative connotation for a lot of people. That here's this person who doesn't know our culture, doesn't know our organization, doesn't know how we do things, and now they're coming in and trying to tell us how to do our job. The train-the-trainer model bypasses all of that, because the way that it works, the consultant comes in, but they train a small cadre of master trainers. So that's what we did at Metro. Today I think we have nearly 35, 36 master trainers for our organization. Those master trainers, though, then are responsible for passing the education on throughout the organization. So those 35 people are full-time employees of Metro Health, and they all have regular jobs. They're trauma surgeons, they're ED docs, they're scrub nurses, they're environmental services. They're regular staff within our organization who said, I'm interested enough in this program that I'll become a master trainer, and I'll work with my supervisor to ensure that I can get time to provide educational classes.
And then how do you go about selecting your master trainers, other than they have to come up to you and want it and volunteer for it? What kind of person are you looking for to be a trainer? Or
Well, the first thing we wanted is we wanted good representation. So we, again, because we decided to do the entire organization, we wanted representation across discipline. Then what you want is you want people who are passionate about teamwork, who already probably exemplify most of what Team Stepps is really about, and they're respected by their peers. You can't take Team Stepps to your organization if you have a reputation of being selfish, self-centered, not a team player, not a good communicator. You put that person up in front of people and then they start sort of promoting Team Stepps, they're not credible.
yeah.
And so it's very important that they have credibility. And then you're looking for people who are good teachers.
Would you say it's kind of across the board the same with instructors as it is with master trainers? You're looking for the same kind of...
So the way it works, master trainers are advocates and intervene throughout the organization. Instructors are selected from an area, a department, or a division, and they will only interact with the people from their division or department.
okay.
And they're really the ones who are going to teach it over and over again to make sure everyone in their area understands what the principles and tools are.
Excellent. So we hear a lot about adult learner models of education. Could you describe that a little bit, or what that is?
Yes, AHRQ provides. And it's a PowerPoint, and it's all laid out very nicely, and all the content is there. But again, if you just walk through that content, people are going to be zoning out, they're going to be very bored, and it's going to just turn into sort of almost a talking head. Well, typically 10, 15 minutes is about as much time as you can actually talk at people, and that's even a bit much. And then it needs to be broken up. And so what we've done is we've taken all of our modules, and they're broken into about 10, 15 minute segments. So we present some content, then we stop. And in that presentation, we may use videos that exemplify what we're talking about. And we typically don't use serious videos. Occasionally we'll use those that, we just taught you a tool. Here is an example of how it's used in a clinical setting. But a lot of the times what we use are YouTube videos, which are very humorous, but they bring the content across and can be used for discussion. Then what we'll do is when we finish a module, we'll almost always have some activity. It may be a game, it may be a simulation, a role play, but something where the audience gets up, moves around, and uses what they just learned. And then they get to debrief it. What was that like? What was good about it? What would you do different next time? What do you think of this idea? How might you use it in your clinical area? So there's a small piece of content with some type of engaging activity, and then using the material and then discussing it. And then after that, you can move on to the next set of content. But you can see that then the day is broken up into these small bite-sized pieces.
So for maybe someone who is really engaged, wants to be a part of this project, and can say, yes, I understand what the adult learner model is, but wonders what it takes to become an engaging and effective presenter, what advice would you give them?
Anybody can be a good instructor. And it's not like you're born. I mean, some people have some natural abilities, and that's wonderful, but anyone can learn to be a good educator. One of the first things that I always talk about is just simply body language. And so often individuals get caught up in being very rigid and very sort of methodical, making sure they hit all the content, that they don't miss anything, and very sort of perfectionistic about what they're talking about. The result is that they almost sound like a robot. And what you want is you want it to become engaging. So you want good eye contact, you want facial expression, you want them to smile, you want them to use a little humor, you want them to have good body posture, you want to make sure that they're looking toward their audience and don't turn their back to the audience. I tell people over and again, know your material, practice. If you have to look at your PowerPoint slide to know what you're talking about and you start reading it, you've probably turned your back to your audience and you've lost them. One, they can read, they don't need you to read to them. And second of all, they want to hear something that adds to the slide. So you want to be giving different material than what's on the slide. You might hit on the main points, but give examples. Draw from your own experience. Tell a funny story. Show how it maybe was applied in a setting where you were working recently, so that it becomes relevant.
What guidelines would you say there are for slides?
People always want to put too much on their slides. So, a little bit later, I'm going to stay with the content for right now for the group, which is fine. The other is to think about, so what are they saying? Are they challenging the efficacy of Team Stepps? Well, bring it back to saying, you know what, I think that's a really good point, but there is a lot of research that we have now to support Team Stepps, nearly 30 years. What I can do is I can provide you with references and show you where you can go and look up different studies that have been done that are specific to the areas that you're interested in that may be helpful for you. So again, rather than get defensive, just go with it, thank them for their comment, work with them.
That's excellent advice. Well, for our last question, what has been the most memorable, positive experience?
So we've been working with our ambulatory network, and we were training the instructors, and it was so much fun. They're really engaged, and they came in the second time that we met with them with a game, and they were really excited about it. And so they really called me over right away, and they said, okay, and there were like 15 of us standing in a circle, and they had these foam balls. And they said, okay, Dr. Smith, you're going to be the doctor, the patient's going to start with you, and this is your medical team. And so again, I've got like 15 people in this circle. And they said, so everybody has to touch the patient. The patient is the ball. You have to pass the patient off. You have to do a handoff to other people in the circle. Everyone in the circle has to touch the patient. And then it has to end up with you. I said, well, okay. And I went to hand it to the person next to me. He said, oh, no, you can't do that. You have to toss it to a person across from you. And everybody has to toss the patient. And you have to remember who you toss it to, because if we have to do it a second time, you have to follow the same order. Just like in the clinic, we have processes, we have procedures. Okay, so I toss it to a person over there, they toss it. It goes all the way around, it ends up with me, and everybody's all excited, and that was good. And so we didn't think anything of it. I thought, well, it's okay, game. And so they said, well, let's just do it one more time. And I said, well, okay. They said, okay, here, Dr. Smith, there's a patient. So they hand me the ball. And so I toss it, and then they look at me and they go, oh, another patient. Oh, well, okay. Oh, another patient. They had like 10 balls. And so they just kept feeding. Well, now balls are falling on the floor, and everybody's laughing, and they're like, oh my golly, we're dropping the patient. It was so much fun. They created the game. And then they talked about how we could use specific Team Stepps tools to improve the process so that we wouldn't drop the balls. And it was just a lot of fun. But it brought home the points that we had talked about. So I thought that was really cool. Another just quick example, too, is when we were doing one of the trainings, we do teach-backs. So one of the activities we do, we've just taught you new skills. And so now it's going to be your turn to get up in front and teach one of the skills. The one group developed a rap song for one of the tools we had taught them. And they got up there and they had music and they sang it, and it was just too funny. But again, I think that creativity shows ownership. And that's the difference. What we want with Team Stepps is we want the master trainers first, and then the instructors to own this process. I'm teaching and I'm helping, but this is not mine. This belongs now to UC Irvine. And we want them to not just teach it, but to take it so that people learn it and very, very quickly apply it. Because that's how you make a change in culture, a change in behavior.
Absolutely. Well, Dr. Smith, thank you so much for coming out and speaking with us. Really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure.